the Orient Express is the new film directed by Kenneth Branagh, and it also stars Kenneth Branagh with a huge cast of people like Daisy Ridley, Leslie Odom Jr., Josh Gad, Michelle Pfeiffer, Johnny Depp. So many people are in this movie, and they all play passengers aboard this train, the Orient Express. They're all trying to get from one place to another, but while out there on their trip, one of the passengers gets murdered, and so it's up to Kenneth Branagh's character, Detective Hercule Poirot, to find out who it is, and he is regarded as one of the best detectives in the world, so if he can't figure it out, then who else can? A lot of people are recognizing that this is another remake of a bunch of other movies that have been made on Murder on the Orient Express before, but it is also a remake of this book, which I love. I love Agatha Christie, and I love this book. It's one of the best murder mysteries, honestly, in my opinion. So I was really curious to see how they're going to translate that into a movie, because I honestly have not seen any of the classic Orient Express movies. I've only read this book, and I wanted to see how it was going to translate into a film if they were going to adapt it correctly, because as I always stand with adaptations is that if the movie doesn't work on its own, if you have to read the book in order to have a better understanding and appreciation for it, then they failed as far as adaptating goes. And I will say, if you have not read Murder on the Orient Express, you probably will end up either liking this movie, maybe just thinking it's okay. I think fans of the book will probably like the movie a little bit more because there is that deeper understanding of the source material, and that is very unfortunate, but honestly, if I was to separate myself, like, okay, I love the book, but just looking at it objectively, I'd still say I liked the movie. One of the best things about this movie is Kenneth Branagh's direction. The cinematography is really well done throughout the movie. You're in these cramped quarters, and Kenneth finds a way to get these great shots throughout the movie that are really clever and unique, honestly, and it really fits the story. And I think it also adds to the kind of claustrophobic feel that you could get. And even visually, I thought they did a really good job. You have real cinematography and sets going on, but even then, there's also moments where they have to use CGI, and honestly, I thought for the most part, it looked pretty good. It honestly does really look gorgeous. The cinematography and the overall visuals of the film really does capture the scenery. And speaking of Kenneth Branagh, another thing I really liked was his performance as Hercule Poirot. He is really good as this character. I enjoyed watching him so much throughout the movie, and his performance as this character honestly do end up stealing a lot of this movie. He was very entertaining. He has to spit out like rapid-fire dialogue when he's piecing things together, and he actually is really good as this character. Honestly, it fit perfectly. The mustache, it looks glorious, but it isn't distracting. Unfortunately, though, when I say that his character and performance overall steal the movie, that's really not saying that much, because the other passengers, even though they're played by great people, and everyone is doing a great job playing these characters, there's really not that much going on interesting with these people. Like in the book, I hate to compare the book right now in this review, but I think I do enjoy the book a lot more because the characters seem more interesting when they're trying to explore them and when they're trying to solve the case. And in this movie, a lot of them feel like background people. Like Judi Dench, Willem Dafoe, Penelope Cruz, a lot of actors really do feel like they're in the background. And even some of the characters and actors that are in the forefront a little bit more, even then, they aren't really executed the way I would have liked them. For example, Josh Gad, I thought was really good in this movie, really setting himself apart from the Olaf role in Pixels. Ugh. But in this movie, I hate to compare this movie to Alien Covenant, but it kind of had a Danny McBride kind of effect where a lot of people are going like, oh man, Josh Gad is so good, kind of being like, oh my god, Danny McBride is so good. And both of those performances, I was just like, yeah, it's good, but there really isn't that much going on character-wise that really shows off the kind of range that he has. You can tell he has the ability to do it, but character-wise it doesn't really come through in the end. I enjoyed his performance, but I would have liked to see more. Also, Daisy Ridley, who I enjoy a lot in Star Wars, I'm glad she's branching out and doing other things so she's not always defined as Rey from Star Wars, but I really wish that there was also more to her character as well. I will say that she's probably the one who has the most screen time out of all the other background passengers, so in that way she is the most fleshed out, but in the end it doesn't really feel like it has that effect on you. And there's a thing going on with her and Leslie Odom Jr.'s character, which I thought could have been really good if we had seen that throughout the movie, but it really only shows up at a few places when it's most convenient, and I just wanted to see that explored a little bit more. I think if this movie was like a TV limited series on some channel, maybe they would have had enough time to kind of delve into all of the characters, see how they're all reacting to it, because it really does feel more like the Hercule Poirot show, which isn't bad. Honestly, this movie is a better character movie about Hercule Poirot than an actual murder mystery film, if you ask me, because a lot of the murder mystery elements in this film get solved in like 10 seconds by Hercule Poirot. For me, it didn't really feel like when I was watching it that the movie was trying to get me and the other audience members involved with the mystery. It just kind of seemed like, well, we're just gonna have Hercule Poirot just solve everything, kind of breeze through it. He's really intelligent, so of course that works. And it's not horrible, it's just that I wish that they had done a little bit more involvement with the audience. Because no matter how entertaining Kenneth Branagh is as Hercule Poirot, I think that involving your audience more with the mystery, trying to have them solve certain things instead of just saying it to them like 10 seconds later, would have actually benefited the murder mystery element a lot better. I will say though, Johnny Depp is really good in this movie. I was a little worried at first, but I think he actually pulled it off. I think it's really just because of the stigma Johnny Depp has, and maybe that's why I was a little worried at first. I walked out really pleased with how he did this character. And also Michelle Pfeiffer, I thought she was really good. I wasn't sure how she was going to be at first, but she turned out being someone that I liked as her character. Overall, this is a movie that you can watch. At first, it starts off really funny, and I was on board with it. All right, I want to see where this movie goes, and as the movie goes on, the murder happens, and they're trying to solve the case. I was still watching the film. I was still entertained by Hercule Poirot, and when the movie starts to wrap up and they do the reveal, and there's some darker elements that are in there, a lot of people will complain about that, but for me, I wasn't really that affected by it. Honestly, I thought it worked pretty well with how they let up. They had a good kind of comedic, silly kind of opening, and then they kind of gradually kind of steeped into the more serious elements while having a little bit more lightheartedness on the side, and then by the end of the movies when they go like complete serious, I think they had a good progression of that. So tone really wasn't a big problem with me. It's just that by the end of the movie, it's like, man, this ending works pretty well already. How much better would this ending be if they took a lot more time with these characters, if they tried to invest the audience a lot more with the murder mystery? A lot of my problems are really just through execution. I am a big sucker for murder mystery films, so maybe that's why I'm a little more lenient on this film than I normally would be. I will say that as an adaptation of the book, not the greatest, but as its own movie, it is perfectly watchable. The actors do a good job. Hercule Poirot is awesome, and the murder mystery is something that will intrigue you, and when they get to the twist, you might even be really surprised by that, because this is a great story. It's just that when they tried to adapt it, when you have to fit it in with the movie time, not make it too long, but not make it too short, you kind of do have to cut some things, character-wise, and that's why we don't really get a lot more development that maybe we wanted. I honestly would have preferred this movie to go on a little bit longer if we could get into the characters and get invested with the situation a little bit more. That's all really for me with flaws. I honestly did like this movie. I can understand why some people might think this movie's just okay or kind of forgettable, but I honestly do think that Kenneth Branagh had a good thing going with him as the director of this movie. I think he had a good thing going. It's just that through some of the execution, it's not as great as it could have been. I'm gonna give Murder on the Orient Express a B. I did have a good time with this movie. Execution could have been a little bit better, but still I think Kenneth Branagh did a solid job adapting this book into the film. It could have been better, but I still liked it. But if you've seen Murder on the Orient Express, leave in the comments below what you thought of it. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.